Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
Literally a guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin still lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, one and all, to PSGL PCF4 Season 34. And we are here for round 9 of the championship in Saudi Arabia. I'm joined by the one and only Mips Guy, and welcome, mate. Saudi Arabia, Jeddah Corniche Circuit. How are you feeling?
Well, feeling pretty good. Very excited for this race. One of the longer tracks that we have on the calendar. 27 turns as well, quite a lot. And well, given the action that we had last week, for which we have a lot to recap, I can only wonder what we're going to see tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to recap, because that race was absolutely electric and right down to the wire to the end. So, as a quick refresher, last time out we were at Spa. We were at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit in a beautiful landscape that is Belgium. And today we head to Jeddah Corniche Circuit for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Next round we have was round 10 with the Circuit Hermanos Rodriguez, aka the Mexican Grand Prix. And then rounds 11 and 12 are, as of yet, undecided still. I love to speculate about it, but what do you think our final two tracks are going to be?
Well, I think like we said a couple of weeks ago, you kind of have to have a track in the States. There's 3 tracks in the official F1 calendar, so we kind of need to have one in our set. And on top of that, I mean, we've had a decent amount of actually not too many street circuits. Maybe Singapore, who knows?
Maybe. I hope we get Kota. Out of all the American tracks, I think Kota is like a step clear, in all honesty. Just such a unique driving challenge. Because I've also heard mixed feedback in regards to Las Vegas as a track to drive on in this game. I've heard very mixed things. Some say that it's a great street challenge, and others say that the curbs are a little bit inconsistent. What say you?
Well, I've driven a couple of laps on there, and the thing that is a bit annoying for me is that the straights are fairly long, but what's also quite difficult, and that will be difficult for the drivers also, it's very hard to judge what your braking point is going to be. In the other tracks, you have your signs on the side, your 50, 100, 150 meter mark. You don't have those everywhere in Las Vegas. And yeah, the insanely long straight at some point. I mean, I'm not a fan. Hopefully, it will be interesting though when we see it in, I believe, in November. But seeing that you can get standing tickets for about $500,000, I think it's quite pricey as well if you want to be there.
Yeah, it is a little bit pricey, and with that, we can kind of take a little bit forward back to our realm and back to where we stand. So coming off the Belgian Grand Prix, let's go through a little bit of a recap. First things first, Lilian put it on top in qualifying, just a few milliseconds, 35 milliseconds ahead of Alexander Dimas, and half a tenth, oh no, that is to say, almost a full tenth ahead of Cordinogo. That is so your top three in qualifying. In the race, Leo Lund stepped forward. He took a big swing and he made it work. He put it himself into the top spot. Lilian in P2 and Balantalekis in the third position. But we saw a lot of stewarding moments, we'll say, because as you can see, the stewards box, the stewarding bracket, you can see plus 5 seconds for Lilian, plus 10 seconds for Raul Sprogis, plus 5 seconds for Silly Sly Guy, and plus 5 for Alexander Dimas. I believe we also had a couple other drivers who also got a few warnings and license points. I don't know. I think Myth, you've got the stewards report right there, haven't you?
Yeah, there were quite a few things to review. There was some early on action that resulted in some penalties, I believe for Lilian and Alexander Dimas. And of course, the last lap incidents that we've seen. We saw Alexander Dimas spinning out, I believe, the end of the Camel Straight. And then at the bus stop chicane, we saw an incident with Ruud Sprogis and Lilian, which meant that Leo Lund could sneak by and get through, pull a little bit of a Hamilton there. And yeah, that means that Lilian drops from P2 to P6. Ruud Sprogis from 4th drops all the way down to 10th, still picking up 1 point though. Silly Sly Guy dropping down from 9th with the 5 seconds to 12, so no points for him. And Alexander Dimas, yeah, from 13th to 14th, but that does not really matter. The damage for him was already done, but that was, of course, a different incident. That means that he crashed out. He, of course, did not get a penalty for that. That was none of his... well, it was nothing he could do about, but I believe there was no penalty given for that incident, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe there was a couple of warnings.
Yeah. But 5 at least that were penalized, so quite a lot.
Yeah, and I guess this is the point where we step in and be that adjudicator and say, always make your races clean and like respect the driving standards. This is the example of why we say that. You look at, for example, Lilian went from P2 to P6 from getting that 5-second penalty. That is 7 points lost in a championship that they are trying to get back on the front step of. Raul Sprogis lost about 7, yeah, it was also 7 points. They went from that 4th to that P10 spot. So they actually got lucky that they got a point because they had 10 seconds to their name. Though surprisingly, you look at the drivers' standings and they do still lead, if only just a single point is what's keeping them at the top of the championship right now, with Ivan Santamaria for the Aston Martin team just trailing behind. They're lucky that a lot of their main protagonists in this championship didn't get any stellar results.
Yeah, I think what's important to note here that Ivan Santamaria and Milan Meyer, like we haven't really seen all too much of them in the last few races, but what they've been doing very well is they stayed out of trouble. We didn't see them involved with a lot of incidents, usually gain a couple of places after some penalties were applied, just quietly making their way towards the front. And yeah, we can see in the championship standings, even Santamaria 1 point off our leader, 54 to 55 points. Milan Meyer is at 50. Alexander Dimas is at 49. And yeah, Lilly and Sven Schumacher are both at 42. So they are also still in. So we have 6 drivers essentially within points of one race that could change the lead. And until last race, those were, I believe, 3 or 4 drivers. So the championship is getting closer and closer. And with 4 races to go, one might wonder, when are we going to see less drivers in contention for the championship instead of more?
Yeah, so the championship is still very much up for grabs. If Santa Maria and Milan Maya can keep doing a good job as they have, they just stay out of trouble, like you said. Just have that quiet race, because as we've seen here, it has paid dividends. That consistent points finish, just bringing it home. In fact, Santa Maria being the few drivers, in fact, I think the only driver to have every single finish, bar one, be a points finish. So they only had a single P12, and that was at Qatar. But coming off of that, every single race they brought in points, and that consistency is really shining through, because they are literally a hair's width away from taking the lead currently.
Yeah, and that does matter a lot. In the end, who has the longest breath, of course, is going to stay in. But you're now also approaching a point in the championship where so many drivers can still take it that you will have to score more than consistent and score podium places if you do want to be up in contention for the title. And I think with 4 races to go, I think it's fair to say you want to score at least 2, if not 3 podiums if you want to win the title, perhaps pick up 1 or 2 wins. And yeah, the driver that so far has been most consistently at picking up wins is Riyad Sprogas. He's got 3 wins to his name. And then we have a couple of other drivers, all with 1 win to their name. So, and yeah, Milan Maya and Alexander Dimas, 3rd and 4th in the championship, still without a win. So perhaps they can surprise us at Jeddah. But I think it all depends on which driver really feels comfortable here, because this is a very fast track. You have like an average speed of about 245 kilometers an hour, or 151 miles an hour. The fastest track definitely on the calendar. So much going on, a lot of risks that you can take there. I think we're going to see some hot qualifying in a bit.
Yeah, I think the qualifying is really where it all comes down to. A quick look at the constructors' standings before we take ourselves into the actual tracks. Look at the track map and talk about some key areas. We see McLaren taking the top of the constructors' standings with great performances from both Milan Maya and Leo Lund, of course, being the winner of our last race out in Belgium. And the Aston Martin, Ivan Santamaria, putting in some great work. Simone Violo hasn't really been present for the last few rounds or so. You can see he's got 3 did not starts, 1 DNF, but he did make himself present back in round 7. We haven't seen him since. Noel Carman is going to be carrying the spear for the Mercedes team up in P3 in the constructors, getting that 3rd place as well as the fastest laps, that crucial point in their name as well. And you can see the rest of the standings here. The thing is, with a lot of these cases, when we talk about drivers, we talk about constructors, a lot of drivers, short of occasionally cooperating with one another to stay out of each other's way, drivers are racing for themselves, and that's the same case in the real life counterpart too. But we've seen a big string of successes from teams working together, having the good synergy in PSGL. That's what it's all about. They need to have that synergy. They don't want to be fighting too much, as we have seen in times past in this league, that even if you are teammates, if you don't cooperate, then you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, you almost immediately made me think of Ferrari when you said don't cooperate with each other. But of course, we also have to take a look at the results that we've had in PSGL before. And yeah, when it comes to drivers cooperating with each other, I'm indeed not too sure if we've seen too many of that. Thankfully, incidents with teammates have not really been prevalent. At least I can't remember one, so that is very good. But yeah, I do hope that the drivers can at least work together a little bit more, and hopefully, well, I don't think they're going to slipstream. I don't think they're going to take it that far here at Jeddah, but we'll have to see. I think for now, McLaren definitely seems to be the most stable pair of all of them, at least with the 2 drivers lined up. So they seem to be most likely to take the constructors title. They are only 14 points ahead though, so it's definitely not certain yet. But they have been at the lead of the standings for quite a few races now. And for me, there are no signs that they're about to give it away, if you ask me.
Yeah, so the key thing is just before we head into the track, those were your standings. We have 27 corners, 6.2 kilometers of hard-fought, high-speed racing in the Jeddah Corniche circuit. You can hear just in the backgrounds the cars are peeling out the pits, so we won't keep you waiting any longer. Of course, your DRS zones, 27 corners, final corner being the big one with the DRS chicken coming into play. But let's not delay, and let's get ourselves into quali, folks. This is PSGL PCF4.
Alright, so we're going to jump straight in as we see our drivers go for the outlap. I believe one of the Alpha Tauris is currently at first, so that must be Jeremy. But before we're going to start our quali laps, I want to take you back 2 years to the PSGL race, because we saw something very interesting there. You might have seen it around YouTube earlier this week, at least that's when I found it. A wet race! A wet race in Saudi Arabia, all the way on Inters, and eventually it was Jarno Opmeer taking the win there. It's about 8 seconds of lead, but I must say that is the first time I've ever seen rain at this track.
It's difficult but not impossible. The rain on this track does happen. It is very few and far between, but it is technically tabled within the game that you can get a wet race at Jeddah. It's very bizarre. It's almost a surreal experience in a lot of ways, but regardless, it spices things up, that is for sure.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see anything that crazy this time around. At the moment, our drivers are trying to get into the third sector, which they're going to head into now. Very long track, as I mentioned before, 27 corners that we have. Track's about 6.2 kilometers long, or 3.8 miles. 3 DRS zones. Those are going to be more important in the race, but you have a detection point after the exit of turn 17. The exit turn 19 is when that starts. So basically, the long straights in sector 2 you have, and the long straight in the start-finish line where Jeremy is now, as he's going to start this lap. And yeah, let's go on board with him and let's see what we can make of it.
Let's see what he can do in this lap here. He's got a lot to weigh on his shoulders. He's got a lot of racing to do as we come through first sector now. So this is all about commitment here. Almost not too dissimilar to things like Turkey and things like the back and forth, left, right, left with Kota. In that you have to commit to your line. You have to commit the car fully to 31.6 initial benchmark. So a little bit slow here for Jeremy compared to the sectors that we should be expecting. Low 31s, high 30s is something we should expect. He lost the rear a little bit coming through. I believe that was turn 9. So we'll see if that converts into anything meaningful. Coming through sector 2 now, all about high speed and the good cars getting out of the way there. You can see that's going to be his teammate Lillian. Going to be stepping clear, making sure that sportsmanship rules are observed. 59.5 total time, so that's a 28 seconds on the clock for their sector 2. So looking very quick there. And as we come through final sector 3, of course, you've got the DRS open, and then hard on the brakes through the final left-hand hairpin, and then on the throttle as quick as you can. Get as close to the wall as you can without booking it. And then the DRS opens up once again as we come across the start-finish straight. So 1:26.529, we'll start to see the times roll in now.
Yeah, I immediately see one of the Williams drivers getting a little bit quicker. I believe it's one of our reserve drivers, isn't it? Because they were using a different name that we're used to as, in the meantime, Vincent Nyquist goes quickest with a 1:26.0. Yeah, 2 things that you have to look out for, especially sector 1, very easy to invalidate, as well as the quick right-hander in the second sector, also easy to invalidate there. But what you want to see here, as we were on board with Jeremy earlier on, you want to stay very close to the walls. You want to make sure that your car is very grippy, and the car did not look all too grippy in the first sector. Which I already mentioned, the first sector wasn't that fast. And now with Sven Schumacher also going a little bit quicker, at 1:25.9, shows that there is at least half a second to gain for Jeremy. And that we have not seen the most out of him yet. But I think our main championship protagonists still have to go for their laps, so let's see what they can do.
Yeah, so you can see Wild Spragus yet to go for a lap, or I think he's on one right now. Let's tune in with him, see how he's doing. Alexander Dimas goes fastest so far with a 25.809. Ivan Santamaria put a good time down as well, just 6 milliseconds ahead of Andre Molnar in P4. Lillian is out of the session. They disconnected, so I'm not sure what's happening with them there, whether they'll be able to set a time. Oh no, it looks like they had a collision with the Williams reserve. We'll need to get the name check on that. But Lillian is seemingly out of this session. I'm not sure what's happened.
Well, given the fact that we had a penalty, I think there's been a crash. I mean, it happened, and the first bit of the third sector, so that must be turn. That's always interesting here. That must have been turn 23 where the incident happened. Yeah, it is one of those corners where you can't really see anyone behind you. It is at least a place where you shouldn't be driving slowly. So I hope we get some more information about that or something more with the onboards. Looks like Kokeni Thomas is driving under that name of Audi R6, so we can refer to him as Kokeni Thomas. But yeah, he's picked up the five place grid penalty. And let's see if anything else. Yeah, I don't see anything more in the chat, but seeing that Lillian said thanks to him does indicate that there likely was an incident.
Yeah, so we're going to see certainly a little bit of a spice in the chat. And you just see a tyre marooned in the middle of the track there. Surprised stewards haven't come in to pick that one up. But we've got Andrew Karapi coming through final couple of corners here in that Mercedes. And we're going to see the time that they can put down. One of the last few drivers who need to put something down, but they're going to get obstructed, it looks like, by... That is a Haas there, and they're going to have to go into the pit. So I'm not sure whether that time was a full commit. I don't believe it was. But even so, the Haas was just right slap bang in the middle of that track there.
Well, so far, most of our drivers are coming in. It's only Noel Carman who is currently on an out lap. Just to go back to the incident with Kokeni Thomas and Lillian. Lillian, of course, not too happy with it. They are keeping it nice in the chat for the time being, and I hope they will all the way through. And there we do indeed see that tire stuck on the track. Very interesting look. But yeah, what is interesting here is that Lillian is one of our championship protagonists. He's going to start from P20. And even though that this is a track where overtaking is not too difficult with the DRS zones and the long straights, seeing how much chaos there can be on this track, I am not sure if you want to be starting all the way at the back.
Yeah, and it's a blessing and a curse, because in one way that you can keep yourself out of trouble, but at the same time, if something happens ahead of you, and you, say, got cars that are surrounding you, maybe one to the left, one to the right, and there might be a little bit of space in the middle, you've got nowhere to go, and that's the issue. You need to have an escape road, and on a track like this, with as tight as it is and with the lack of runoff in a lot of areas, if there is an incident, we can quickly see it turn to 3, 4, 5, 6 cars getting involved.
Yes, that's very easy to see. This is one of the tracks where you just don't want to start at the midfield. If it's at the back of the field, obviously you don't want to be there because you have a lot of overtaking to do. But generally, T1 is going to be a little bit safer for you, because if chaos ensues in front of you, you can at least react to it. As we just see Noel Carlman hit the wall there coming into turn... we have to look. Turn 16. And he has invalidated his lap time, so he's going to come in and give it another go later on. But yeah, being at the back means T1 a little less hectic. But I think for most of the drivers here, of course, you're gunning for a top 5 position. That's the safest bit if you want to make it out, well, essentially alive out of T1. And yeah, I think we're going to see some interesting moves there during the race.
Yeah, so some interesting moves. That is certainly going to be one way that we can say it. And we are going to see a few drivers are going to go out now. So we've got Kokeni Thomas, aka Audi RS6. We're going to see them out here. We'll see what kind of performance they can actually put down, because they have critically, as we established earlier, seemingly put Lillian out of qualifying, although we'll have to get clarification from stewards on that one, see if we can get any clips and any context down the road. But it looks like they had an incident with Lillian, so any damage they would have got would have been fixed by now. We'll see what times they can put down, but yeah, I do feel for that AlphaTauri, because they are going to be slap bang at the bottom of the grid. Though, if those bottom 4 don't set a time, then that could change things, that could complicate things a little bit. down that end, P17 through 20.
We'll have to see how that unfolds as Kenny Thomas is now going towards the end of Sector 2. What we can see with him, though, is he's already 3/10 up. His car is... Ooh, I was losing it there. I was going to say it's a lot more grippier, especially in the first sector. I'm not sure if you were on board with him, but you could see how much closer he was able to get to the wall. Didn't get the best of exit through turn 10. Didn't carry too much speed through turn 9, and turn 10 wasn't that great. Now, of course, almost losing it down at turn 23. But this run was a lot better, and you can see his setup definitely is a lot more solid. I think with less mistakes, he can definitely dive into the 125s, perhaps pick up a top 5 classification. But there's more in the tank for him, but the car setup definitely isn't the issue. The car setup looks good.
Yeah, it looks like he's balancing on a knife edge to a degree, but if he can make that work, then he has a potentially really powerful car on his hands around the hands of Jeddah, because you need to get that grip down. You need to have that high-speed lateral grip. That is crucial around here with so many high to medium speed corners. Not really much in the way of slow turns. As we see, Andre Molnar is going to be coming through, setting the timesheet alight with a 125.682. Are we going to see anyone challenge that? Cordon went across the line. We've got a couple more drivers who are also pushing rounds, but I am going to jump over. Keep an eye on Rad Sprogis, because it looks like they've made good time on Sector 1. They've made good time on Sector 2. They're almost coming up to half a second on their previous time. So if they nail this last sector, where I believe they lost a lot of time last out, we could see them jump into the 25.9s, 25.8s, or even more. But final corner now coming through for Rad Sprogis. Very close to the wall, quickly bowing out of there, making sure they don't take any unnecessary risks. And as we come across the line, it's a 26 flat. That's 0.47, and that is going to be a P7 for the Haas driver.
And here's Dimas then, who just comes across in second. His first sector was the fastest all the way around, was about a 10th and a half quicker. Dropped a little bit of time in Sector 2, a little bit of time in Sector 3. Overall, pretty solid lap, but just not quick enough to attack Andre Molnar's time. But I have to see, I'm a bit surprised to see him up top there. He's really put in a stonking lap time there. And I wonder if any of the drivers can get too close to it. But most of our drivers do seem to be improving. There is time to gain. But is there enough time to gain to beat that 125.6? No, Dimas loses it!
Wait, Dimas, yeah, though he's still in it. He is still in it. He has got significant issues now that he's got damage.
I think he got hit by Noel Carmen. I think he got hit. I think he was driving very slow in the first sector. And I think he got hit in the rear. Yeah, he got hit in the rear, and Noel Carmen is on the bottom end of it. And he's also not able to set a lap time. Our second incident that we've had in qualifying. This means Alexander Dream is also going to drop by. So 2 of our championship protagonists have now been involved in a qualifying accident.
And that is certainly going to be frowned upon in regards to the stewards, with regards to the drivers. There's certainly going to be some choice comments around the back, but it's just the level of aggression and almost desperation I'm seeing. It's too much. We're in qualifying. We don't need to go this hard. Dimas needs to get back into the pits and do it fast, because he is running on borrowed time. He could potentially get that wing replaced. He could potentially get himself back out on track for one last go. But time is of the essence.
Yeah, but what we're seeing here are some basic mistakes. I mean, looking in your mirrors here is very difficult, because it's very hard to see who's on track. Of course, you could use the minimap for that to make it easier. At least makes it a lot easier for us. But this is one of those tracks where it's not easy to see drivers behind you, which means you cannot drive slowly through the fast sections. And if you do that, we saw earlier on at the beginning of Sector 3, incidents can happen. Now it happened in Sector 1, again a sector where you don't want to be driving too slowly. If you want to cool down the tires, if you want to slow down a bit, do it at the areas where the track is wide, where you can pull off the racing line, where you won't be in anyone's way. And these kind of mistakes are easy to avoid, but they're not being avoided.
Yeah, and that kind of begs a question to a lot of the drivers, whether they are being careful enough, whether they're being considerate enough of the drivers around them. Because it is, yes, qualifying is a solo run, but you are not the only one on track, and you need to be mindful of that. So as the driver on their run, Of course, don't go crazy, don't do anything too risky. But even as the drivers who are just happening to be around the track, maybe you're on your cooldown laps, keep the pace up so that if a driver who is on their run needs to get by you, they have the reaction time. If you're going excessively slowly, you are just going to serve to be an instant collision, an instant accident. So you're on board with Ardagune here, being luckily blessed to be one of the few drivers who has a clear track, but they're yielding. They're not going to complete their run here. They're going to be backing off in Sector 2, I assume, to optimize their timing.
Yeah, this was a good decision. We saw in the first sector, Ardagune was about 2/10 quicker. He kind of overshot turn 16, had to lift throttle a little bit as he came out of turn 17. So kind of missed the apex there. And he realized he was not going to increase his position here. So it was better to abort and go for another lap because he does have enough ERS to go for another run. So I think this is the best call that you can make. And the good thing now as well, if you look at the track map, he doesn't have too many drivers in front of him, so hopefully no blocking. Although Nikolai Letta has also picked up a 5-place grid penalty for blocking. So I'm not entirely sure what happened there. But we have 2 drivers that are at least Balnilecki's not on the lap yet. And let's see if we can follow Ardagune.
Yeah, so Ardagune is going to be out on the lap, as is Simone Violo, who is just going to be just behind. But we'll see how they get on. The chat is getting a little bit heated in the drivers' private chats, so we'll of course see what comes out of that. But we are going to restart the lobby once this qualifying has been completed, so we'll have a little bit of an extra interim time just to get the lobby restarted, to get everyone on the right grids, and to get everyone ready with setups following the restart, just because penalties came through for illegal blocking. But anyway, Ardagune looking like a decent run here from the Ferrari, of course dawned in the special edition Monza livery, as we've become accustomed to over the past few seasons now. Looking really striking, that red and yellow is making it certainly look like an absolute stunner. Sector 2 now, coming up to the end of it. What's the timing going to be? It's 2/10 up for Ardagune here. They could be on the books for a 0.8, which could put them P4. So they need to keep this pace up at all costs if they want to land that move successfully. All comes down to this final sector. Final corner here. Drivers need to be out of their way. They do not want to get in the way of this Ferrari. And big slip on the rear coming from Ardagune in the last corner. They dipped in wide and they're going into the wall, losing their front wing, and they're going to be sending it into the pit wall and retiring. What was that? I have no words. Just what was that from Ardagune? That was not what we expected here.
I'm not entirely sure. They seem to be on for a pretty good lap. Of course, a slight mistake at the end. I'm not sure if the touch with the wall was intentional because they were upset they messed up the exit. But yeah, we can't see, of course, the live timing screen to see how well they were doing. In the meantime, we saw that Kokeni Thomas had improved to a P3. So he's done quite well there, as Vincent Nyquist is now coming across the line. And he's going to set a 3rd time there with a 1:25.743. So a couple of drivers to go, but quite some have ended their run already. So Jeremy has ended it. Ivan Santamaria, Leo Lund, Riot Sproges, Ardagune, Simona Violo, Ben Marples, and Lillian Carmen, of course, who are out already. A couple of drivers are still on the track, so let's see if someone can still make a charge for pole.
And say making a charge for pole, they will. We've got Andre Molnar, who has abandoned their lap. They are not going to be setting a new time, so their position is going to stand unless they can make an improvement. But this is Alexander Dimas. He's looking on an absolute rocket of a run. He needs to make an Herculean recovery after what happened earlier against Noel Carman, and we can see as he's going to be coming through the final corner now, really pushing that Red Bull. That RB19 is at the knife's edge. He's giving it absolutely everything. I think this could be it. It's going to be very close, and no, it is going to not be an improvement, and in fact they are going to get a perfectly equal time, a 0.703. They matched their previous pole down to the millisecond.
That is extremely impressive indeed, but it will end up with a P2, and all of our drivers have already crossed the finish line. So that means Andre Molnar is going to take pole position here for the Jeddah, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. with Alexander Dimas on P2, and the second row, Vincent Nyquist. A very good run for the Alpines. And then the Williams of Kokeni Thomas. But yeah, Kokeni Thomas involved with an incident, and Alexander Dimas involved with an incident. So I think we're going to see them move away a little bit.
Yeah, and we'll see how these drivers make of this starting position. Ironically, I believe Dimas is in the best position as of right now, but of course we will have to restart. Ignore the penalties coming up. Andre Molnar is going to be your quali and pole position winner, and out here in the Alpine, it's looking like a very good day. First and third, with Vincent Nyquist taking the P3. Then you have Kokeni Thomas, you have Sven Schumacher, Jeremy, Ivan Santamaria, Andrew Krapi, Leo Lund, Milan Meyer, Ryard Spregius, Arda Gune, Silly Sly Guy, Simone Violo, Nicola Leder, Cordon Ngolo, Ben Marples, Corneda Bakker, and then Lillian and Noel Carman not setting times on the board at all after crashing out. So that is your quality order, folks, and we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Alrighty, folks, so thank you for your patience. We're just going to be taking a little bit of a ceasefire, a little bit of a break, just where the drivers need to have an opportunity to restart the lobby to get rid of penalties for illegal blocking. So let's see ourselves discussing where we can expect our drivers to be. Who have you got your eye on, Miff, as we get through to this crucial race start?
Well, I'm a little bit surprised with the performance from the Alpines. They've done really, really well, especially Andre Molnar, who's got pole. But who I think is going to be an important driver to watch is going to be Sven Schumacher. Had some decent results last race, is still within the championship fight, 13 points away from the leader. And out of the championship protagonists, he is the driver that is most up at the front, because after the penalties apply, I believe he's going to be starting in P3. So we could see some interesting moves coming in from him, although Alexander Dimas won't be too far back. I believe we will have Ivan Santamaria in 5th. I think Dimas is P6, yeah, because of another penalty. Brett Progress is going to say P11. Milan Meyer sort of close as well. So most of the championship drivers are close to the top 10, top 12. But I think our eyes will mostly be on, at least for this race, that looks like Sven Schumacher. And yeah, Alexander Dimas has shown that he got great pace. But you are round about that place at the grid where it's very, very easy to get involved in an incident, especially at the first lap. So I'm going to cross my fingers when we go into turn 1 and hope that nothing happens.
Yeah, we kind of have to just sit here and hope. I will be honest in that I know that things are going to get chaotic. I think things are definitely going to kick off coming out of turn 1, but certainly into turns 2 and 3, where you're going to have drivers 2 abreast, 3 abreast, looking for any opportunity to get around. Like I said before about that sort of desperation from drivers, it's like they need to get that place. It's too much as far as my perspective goes, but I can't deny the spirit of the drivers, and with that in mind, we are going to see some chaos. We just kind of have to brace for what it is going to be. But looking at qualifying, I'm still surprised. I still did not expect to see 2 drivers basically crash out. No, more drivers crash out, because we had one of the Aston Martins, Simone Violo, crash out in the pit lane after being angry about a time.
Yeah, those are just some deliberate crashes that you do out of frustration. So I can kind of understand that. It's not like really a mistake or anything that happened. Of course, the 2 other incidents that were the case. Here with the race as well, I mean, we've already seen so much chaos. There's, of course, a lot of chaos that's coming from last weekend's race in Belgium, where we saw drivers taking way too much risk. But if you're going to do that here, this track is unforgiving. I mean, we saw in Spa, there is some runoff, there's some grass, there is some gravel. the only thing that you can find here is the soft comfort of a hard brick wall. So that is not going to end perfectly well if you're going to take too much risks here. So the drivers will have to be mindful of that and hopefully not take too many risks. Although I understand that because we're at the later stage of the championship, issues can happen here. And we haven't even talked about the DRS chicken games that we're going to see at the end of, well, just in front of turn 27, especially I think on the last lap. So I think we're going to see a lot of heated action at the start. We might see a safety car around about lap 10, so some action in the middle. And then, yeah, the final few laps are going to be crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, no, you make a good point of the DRS chicken. There's going to be a little level of micro strategy playing in. Not too dissimilar to what we've seen in rounds past when you have two DRS zones clumped together. You have drivers making a judgment call. Do they go for the overtake or do they wait behind to get the second DRS zone and confirm it there? This is none more true than at Jeddah. So you have the DRS coming into turn 25 and then you have another DRS zone down the start-finish straight coming out of turn 27. So it's not uncommon, and in fact a recommended strategy, or even when you have the speed, do not overtake on turns 25 and 26 because you need to stay behind to get the detection heading into 27 and get the overtake on the start-finish straight then.
Exactly, and if you see around about how long the DRS straight is, you don't want to be making that move on the last lap because the race to start-finish is, well, you're going to either just make it or just not make it, but when your opponent has ERS to defend, you're not going to overtake them on the straight there yet. So what you want to do is you want to, well, essentially, you want to be leading the race and the last lap after turn 1. That's where you want to be. Being overtaken on the last lap with the DRS zones is going to be hard unless it happens just before turn 27. But essentially what you have to do is get ahead in turn 1, have a good first sector, pull a bit of a gap, keep the lead, get a good exit out of turn 27, and then power away with ERS. And otherwise we could even see some moves being made in the last corner of the race or just before the last corner of the race. And that is going to be our decider for the race winner. Just like we saw last week around when Leo Lund came from P3 to P1 through the bus stop chicane. Although that was not necessarily him making a great overtaking move, but just staying awake, staying calm, and capitalizing on mistakes of others. But this is something we can definitely see as well tonight.
Yeah, and as we jump into the race, we're about to get trackside, but just a reminder of what is at stake here. So Rad Sprogis leads the championship from Ivan Santamaria by a single point, with a few points separating themselves. And Milan Meyer, Alexander Dimas with Lillian going to be starting down in P19 or P20, I believe, in the AlphaTauri, down in P5, and Sven Schumacher down in P6. But that is enough. This is time. It is Jeddah. It's PCF4. And this is where we start to get into the race. So, folks, let's do this.
I think it's only more than fair to ask our chat and see who they think is going to win. Because I think because of qualifying, everything's wide open. Because, well, like we mentioned, Sven Schumacher is going to be likely in third. We'll see Dimas in fifth. I think even Santamaria will be fourth. So the first two spots are both going to be the Alpines after penalties are applied. And I don't think, no, there's no penalties actually. And we're right on our way as we are 5 red lights. And now they're off. It looks like our pole position driver, Andrew Mueller, has the best start. But it's immediately Alexander Dimas who's in the inside, but can't get the overtaking move done. And it's a very good start from Sven Schumacher, who's already disposed of 2 of his main competitors. And now is going to be trying to charge at Alexander Dimas as we are now moving into turn 4, going into the fast sector. We see a couple of drivers go to the back. Those are Jeremy and Ducrepi, and we see even Santamaria also drop into the back. I believe there was some contact there. Lillian, in the meantime, has made up some places. Lillian started all the way at the back. It's now P14. Sven Schumacher now makes the dive in a second. He overtakes Alexander Dimas.
And the safety car is already out. It is lap 1. It is lap 1. And Nicola Aleda has taken terminal damage and is out of this session. Safety car is out in full force. We've not even made it half a lap, folks. We've seen so much chaos. We saw drivers going off at the side. We see drivers tussling 2-3 abreast like predicted. And these are the results. We are not even half a lap in, and this is our safety car coming out.
A lot of happening here in the first lap, and if we look at the position changes, we can see how much chaos that has been. Even though there was one incident that we didn't fully catch, of course, losing Nico Leda there. Sven Schumacher made up 3 positions, and Riyad Sprokes is also up in P7. Simone Viello made up 8 places. Corné de Baco making up 8 places, coming up from 18 to 10. Lillian is making up 5 places. And then we have Ivan Santamaria, Andrew Karapi, and Jeremy dropping back quite significantly. And drivers are already heading into the pits. This is very early to go for a pit stop. And I'm not entirely sure what you try to obtain with that, but it looks like most of our championship drivers are trying to make this move. Sven Schumacher, Bert Sprogis, Lillian, Ivan Santamaria, Leo Lund, and also Andrew Karapi and Jeremy. But they likely have damage, so I can understand that. For the other drivers, I'm not sure why they want to make a strategy move straight away. Maybe to get rid of the... Well, they're going for soft somewhere. Let's actually look at the tires so we can see exactly what the drivers are aiming to do. Leo Lund has switched to the soft. Sven Schumacher has gone on hards. I'm not sure what he started on. Bert Sprogis and Karapi are on mediums, and Lily and Ivan Santamaria on soft. So I think what they want to do is change strategy, go for soft medium runs. Except for Sven Schumacher, I think he just wants fresh hard tires, or he wants to go all the way to the end, expecting more. I'm not sure what the strategy behind this is, and I think some of the front runners might be making a mistake here.
Well, I think with the compound strategy, there's two different options. I think you're either swapping to circumvent the 2 compound rule. So if you started, say, on the softs or started on the hards, depending on how much safety car running there is, you could potentially squeeze an entire race out of a hard. Not so much a medium. I think that's far too risky. So I think the only one going for this is Sven Schumacher. He could make a case for running the entire race on a single set of hards and avoiding a pit stop entirely, because he's technically changed over from softs. He has satisfied the 2 compound rule. The other, more viable option is simply that with the pack being condensed together, especially on the restart, they want to be on the freshest rubber possible. So jumping onto the softs or the mediums where they were on that already means that they can maximize their pace.
Well, some of the drivers are sacrificing a lot of positions for that. Definitely taking some risk here, perhaps expecting some strategies to play out. Indeed, Sven Schumacher could go all the way to the end, or other drivers are likely not going to do that. I think the driver for who the safety car is the most fortunate, I think, is for Lillian. They were quite a bit at the back. They were able to get a pit stop in and now go to softs. They've only dropped a few positions because of that. And yeah, the drivers that were involved with some turn 1 incidents at least have that free pit stop and change to fresh rubber. So also for Jeremy, for Andrew Karapi, for Ivan Santamaria, this hasn't been too bad. And Ivan Santamaria immediately is going to go in for hards. And I think they want to do the same thing that you mentioned and just try to go all the way to the end.
Yeah, it's about that trade-off of understanding how much time you'd lose by being on the hard compound and being on the entire race versus the time that you'd lose being on a pit stop. Of course, if another SC comes out, this strategy goes entirely out the window. So, like with everyone, you need to be adaptive. You need to understand what's going on around you and adapt accordingly. If another safety car comes out, drivers are going to have to make a lot of choices on the fly once again, but that's the beauty of the sport.
Yeah, we're going to see likely the end of this lap how that is going to pan out, because I think the safety car will be coming in this lap as soon as Ivan Santamaria closes it. What we see here is the drivers are taking 2 different sets of strategies. Drivers expecting, okay, we can make something happen here with an alternative strategy, let's immediately box. Or you have drivers that are like, okay, maybe more chaos will ensue, we're going to stay out, Alexander Dimas, not take any risk, not do anything crazy, just try and keep it simple, and yeah, hopefully score as many points as possible to stay within the championship. But you can see the different strategies. Alexander Dimas going to make sure, okay, I want a solid result, and the others, so Sven Schumacher, Lulund, Riyad Sprogis, and Lillian, well, perhaps Lillian a little bit last, and Ivan Santamaria also a little bit last, but those championship drivers perhaps taking a little bit more risk.
And see, everyone is clumping up now because it is time for the safety car to come out and for the drivers to get back to full race pace here. We're lap 3 going into lap 4. Andre Molnar is going to lead the queue. When is he going to set off? Is it going to be early? Is it going to be late? You've got to try and catch his opponent off guard. You can see Weaving is going to be taking a little bit of a later start, and here we go. He is going to get the jump and do so brilliantly on Alexander Dimas. He's pulled out a gap already, and that is what's happened at the back. That is an incident, and under the safety car restart, from it looks like Jeremy and Ryan Sprogis is also down at the bottom.
Yeah, a couple of drivers are coming in. So Noel Carmen, Ben Marples, Jeremy, it's like I think they were involved with an accident. I saw Williams going sideways just after turn 27. So I think the drivers were expecting to go, but Andrew Molnar was not going for it yet, and that caught them off guard a little bit. But that means that well, Ryan Sprogis has stayed out, so hopefully he doesn't have too much damage. But yeah, the other drivers, they are going to be in for an interesting run here. They want to make anything happen, as Lillian's made the jump onto Sven Schumacher. Leland has done so earlier on as well, so he is the fastest, at least the most forward of the more front runners. So I think we could should keep an eye on Leland and Lillian and see if they can catch the drivers up front. The gap now 1.1 seconds.
And we're going to see that gap wane and get even smaller over the course of these next couple laps. They have the compound advantage. They need to leverage it. They're the furthest ahead on the soft compounded tyre. The only outlier in the group ahead is Corne de Backer, who is on the mediums and behind their teammate. So we will see a little bit of movement, but crucially, because of the safety car restart, we're not going to see the DRS come out for a little while longer just yet.
And in the meantime, we see the fight heating up for P1 as Alexander Dimas had 2 looks inside of Andre Molnar, but I think he's going to try and make a move here at turn 1. He's going to try and go around the outside and is not at the best position here, and indeed Andre Molnar will just stay on the inside and keep it shut. But now Alexander Dimas might still be quite close, but now has to look at his inside because the other Alpine is going to come through and he's going to lose a position with that attempt to overtake. And now Vincent Nyquist is up in P2, so we'll have to start over again and try and see if we can make another move stick.
Now this is where team dynamics could really come into play here. Depending on the rapport that Andre Molnar and Vincent Nyquist have with each other, they could see themselves working together in a really advantageous and strategic way. We're seeing a lot of moves down the back end of the field as well, so a little bit of movement, like for example between Sly Guy and Ben Markles, but all eyes are on this top end of the grid. We saw Kokeni Tamas making a move for P4. Corne de Backer is going to be sizing up a move for P5 against Simone Violo very shortly. Again, they're on the mediums and they need to leverage that. Cordon and Lillian are going to be tussling a bit further back, but Cordon is going to have plus 5 seconds onto their race time. So how much they want to fight, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'm still spectating Alexander Dimas, although he has dropped back a little bit. It looks like the drivers behind him, Kenny Thomas and Simone Viola, are coming a little bit closer as we see 3 wide with the McLarens going into turn 27. And it's Leo Lund who comes out up on front of that. He's already made his way into P7. So his strategy to go for a tire change seems to have worked out well. And for Sven Schumacher, still P12, only made up 1 position so far, as we also see Kenny Thomas go with the overtake on Alexander Dimas. Alexander Dimas seemed to be going for the lead, but is now struggling a little bit more, and I think has to look more in his rearview mirrors than to look ahead.
Leonardo Gune is having a little bit of a race to forget. They made contact with the rear of Lillian and they dropped down after making a send on the inside that didn't quite come out against the McLarens like they wanted to. So they're down in P10 right now. They're not looking the healthiest in terms of on-track performance, but Leo Lund is really coming in hot and coming in close, and they're just running out of time. So they've made a really good job of the soft tyres, but how much longer they last is a question we'll have to wait and see for. Corne de Backer is going to make a move on Simone Violo on the Aston Martin, and Leo Lund is going to be the next one on that list. But the DRS zones are coming up, so is that chicken going to come into play? Or because we have so many cars close together, will it really matter?
I don't think they're going to try just as Leo Lund goes for the overtake on the long straight, but we have to see a great overtake by Corne de Backer earlier on. This is very risky from Leo Lund. He's going to take him as well, as he's now going to approach Alexander Dimas. But we saw coming into turn 13, a very late dive from Corne de Backer, but keeping the closer inner line just getting better exit with the fresher tires, getting the exit. Little mistake there from Kokeni Thomas, so Alexander Dimas is immediately side by side. And here we have Leo Lund trying to go in between and has to go late move. Oh, he makes contact! He makes contact with Alexander Dimas. That is not on. He switched way too early there, and that is going to cost him his race, and we have a virtual safety car after that incident.
That is looking really rough there. It's not looking like a good race at all for Leo Lund right now. It's looking like a race to forget, as he's going to be dropping all the way down to P14. A complete 180 from their performance out last time. So we didn't see that kind of aggression coming out before. I wonder if they were just, caught up in the heat at the moment, trying to make sure that they got the most out of those soft tyres. And as the VSC is in full progress, drivers are going to have a difficult choice on their hands in terms of how they're going to recover and manage this race.
Yeah, this incident really gives me some Baku flashbacks with Verstappen and Ricciardo in the actual F1, where there was a bit of rear ending there, and that caused the incident to happen. In this case, Alexander Dimas doesn't seem to have too much damage. I'm not entirely sure if he was to blame for that incident. I will have to review that in order to get a better opinion. But it looked like Leo Lund was trying to go for a move, wanted to make a late dive down the inside and just get the better exit there, and then go on from P2 or P3. Sorry, but he either outbraked itself or was surprised by Dimas not moving too far to the right, and that caused the issue. But in the meantime, we have DRS being re-enabled, so it looks like the virtual safety car is ended.
I would say the virtual safety car is, let's say it's coming to an end, although it is it's still showing up on the screens for some reason. So
That's fine.
there we go. Now it is fully back out, and we're going to see drivers immediately pushing. We're going to keep an eye on board with Lillian for now, or are we going to keep an eye on board with Arda Güne and Sven Schumacher, as it looks like a little bit of a three-pack is going to be brewing in terms of fighting.
And it looks like Leo Lund has continued, even though I saw some damage coming out of that incident. They have not gone for a pits, and Alexander Dimas and Kokeni Thomas have gone for a pits there. So not entirely sure if Leo Lund has any damage there, but I guess we will see more of that during his next pit stop sequence. But given the fact that he's losing time to Andrew Karapi, I do think he's got at least a little bit of damage there. In the meantime, we should keep our eyes on Lillian, because they are closing the gap to Simone Violo, as Arda Güne has gone with the overtake on Milan Meyer. And Simone Violo also being very close to Corneda Bakker, but I think Lillian's got a much better exit there out of turn 22-23, and they will be lining up for a move on the long straight there, because I think it's still too early to go for a dive in turn 27. And we have a new race leader, Vincent Nyquist, with the overtake on Andrei Molnar.
Or do we, as those two are going to be going side by side, neck and neck. And it looks like that Andrei Molnar is not going to let that one go. He's not going to take that one lying down. They're going to be immediately retaking the spot. But it looks like they went too deep into the corner, and their teammate is going to be coming back alongside Corneda Bakker.
I really like what Corneda Bakker did here. I mean, he had the move. I mean, in other tracks, you would go down the inside, you would try to fight for it. This is a street circuit. You know that if you're going to go out the outside, you're going to put yourself on the kicking chair. It's very easy to get hit into the wall. So they backed off and realized, okay, it's more sensible to play the long game here. Let's just stay behind the Alpines for now. I really like that move. Very mature driving.
Yeah, so let them tussle, let them fight, and then pick up the scraps. Take them almost like a vulture strategy. And we can see that he's going to be biding his time, even though he's on better tyres. All saying that, though, that is Jeremy who is out. That is Jeremy who is going to be... or is it? Yeah, no, I'm not sure if they've retired or whether that is whether that is an incident. The safety car is not coming out.
In the meantime, Simone Violo went wide. We saw in the first quick right-hander, they made a little bit of a mistake. Lillian got a little bit closer, didn't go for the overtake yet. And then the fast left-hander, they kind of lost the car a little bit. And now we see a lot of action. Look at the front of the field. We have four drivers so close to one another. And we have to see if Lillian can really go for a move there. But Corneda Bakker so far has the most advantage of that. They could go for a send down in turn 1, but be sensible. Don't go for it yet. And they haven't gone for it so far. It's Vincent Nyquist who's in the lead, and Molnar just keeping ahead of Simone Violo. And Lillian has dropped back a little bit as well. In the meantime, Sven Schumacher also making up a lot of places. It didn't look like his strategy was playing out too well, but he is now back in P6.
And P6 is where he's going to stay for the time being, because I think Lillian is going to be setting up a charge and setting up a little bit of a fight between themselves and Simone Violo. They need to get past these hard runners by this point, because those softs are going to be giving up. Those softs are going to want to come back in any minute now, so time is running out for this AlphaTauri.
As we're now still on board with Lillian, we see ahead Simone Violo struggling a little more, and we have another DNF. Noel Carlman is out. We have another virtual safety car. This might be the moment that Lillian's waiting for. He has to come into the pits now. Not entirely sure what happened for Noel Carlman, but looks like they have disappeared on the map in Sector 1. That is turn 9. So the very fast first sector, they probably made a mistake, ended up in a wall. Perhaps lucky that's only a virtual safety car and not a full safety car. But I can only imagine that we're going to see a lot of drivers coming in. I think at least our top 11's got to come in now, because this is a good moment to switch your tires and go for another run. Although some of our hard runners seem to be staying out because they realize we can't make it to the end on those mediums. If you switch to hards now, you could definitely make it to the end.
Yeah, the strategy is going to be very difficult for those who started on the hot tyres, because they have to switch to a different compound as part of the race. This is the optimal time. It looks like we are very quickly back out to full race conditions, though everyone, like that mid-pack, is going to be coming through and are going to be switching onto the mediums. Cornet back are onto the hards, where they started on the mediums, and they're going to be taking those to the end of the race. Those on the medium, I think, were in the prime position. Lillian is going to be coming from the soft to the medium, so I wonder if they'll make it to the end of the race, or at least not without significant pace loss. Of course, time will tell, and we will have to see as to whether that one shapes up in their favour. Simone Violo now going to be chasing down Cornet back up.
We are on board indeed with Simone Violo, who will have that tire advantage, although it looks like for Cornet Bakker it will be a little bit easier for him to reach the end of the race on those hard running tires. But so far we've had 11 laps, we've had one safety car, we've had 2 virtual safety cars. The chances, the odds that there's still going to be more incidents and more activity with that is very high, as we see Simone Violo now go with the overtake. Hardly use any ERS there as well, so Cornet Bakker already realizing that nothing much is going to happen there. Just going to let Simone Violo through. Probably just want to stay behind, play a little bit DRS, just make sure that you can keep those cars in good shape and be in the prime position at the end of the race. And yeah, indeed, they don't seem to be taking too many risks here and just playing the long game. A very sensible race from Cornet Bakker so far, but one has to wonder, will those mediums last all the way to the end?
Well, I think in Cornet Bakker's case, he's just seeing what the chaos has been like, both in quali and in the race, and just making the decision to always keep their nose clean. They know that getting overzealous and getting into big fights is not going to help them. So even with stiff competition, even with faster cars around them, it's not worth fighting, because especially around Jeddah, it can put you in a really compromising position. So hold your ground, hold firm, but don't get too risky, and it will pay you dividends in the long run. I think that's Cornet Bakker's strategy, and eventually when the hard tyres start to come into their own, when the mediums run out of grip, that's when it will come swinging back and when it will shine.
Yeah, we do have to say though, if it is wise to drop back so many positions, because they have lost 4 positions up until this point, as in the meantime Simone Violo has closed the gap to Cordon and Golo up in front, but he seems to have lost some time with a slight mistake. He's about 9 seconds behind Arda Güne, and it's now 13.5 seconds, so definitely a little bit of a mishaps there. But nonetheless, Simone Violo did at least decrease that gap by about 3 to 3.5 seconds, is now within DRS range in a prime position to overtake them. As we move further down the field, we see Alexander Dimas in P10, about 3.5 seconds behind the group of Cornet Bakker and Simone Violo, all those drivers. But yeah, Dimas definitely has to come in for another pit stop. So Dimas can only hope that there will be another incident, because otherwise it will be very hard for Dimas to score any points on this race, as he's now overtaken by even Santa Maria.
And Santa Maria is looking like a driver who initially was on really good form, but with all the pit stops and the safety car chaos that had come into play, I wonder how well they actually are doing. So that, of course, is one driver who we're keeping our eye on, given that they are in P2 in the standings by a single point. Cordon and Golo is going to be having a pretty rough Sector 1. They're going to be losing a substantial amount of time, and that is going to mean that both Cornet and Milan Maya are going to be overtaking for 7th and 8th, respectively. So big gap coming from the top. Andre Molnar is going to be chasing down their teammate for the lead of the race. That is Vincent Nyquist. But are they going to be coming into the pit soon? And do they have cooperation on strategy? They're pushing each other right to the edge. You saw Molnar getting so close to the wall. I wonder just how much camaraderie those two are having. This is pretty hard but fair racing so far from the two of them. But is one of them going to go in this lap? It is going to be Molnar, and Nyquist is going to be staying out, avoiding that double stack.
Yeah, we saw Andre Molnar using a little bit of his ERS there just in front of turns 27. So he definitely seemed to be on course to go for a pit. We see the drivers on the auto tires starting to fall back a little bit more. Cordon and Golo losing a couple of seconds in that last lap. And of course, the drivers that are pitting now will definitely end up behind the group that is now being led by Simone Violo. But they're going to have a 3-lap tire advantage. And I think towards the end of the race, that is going to play dividends. But we have to see where they come out. Track, they make contact with Dimas, and they immediately get a 3-second time penalty for, well, it must have been track limits, but there was no way to go. I don't know if Dimas saw them. I don't know if there's any damage. It doesn't look like there's any damage for the time being. The winamp plates are still on. That was dangerous.
Unfortunately, we don't have replay functionality, so we can't catch that one back. But what we can say is that Dimas is going to be really frustrated with what just transpired out on track, and they are going to be driving like an absolute weapon in the middle of the pack. You can see that even Santa Maria is going to have to yield to both Molnar and Dimas, as they are going to be dropping down into P10. They were looking really strong in that spot, and they're trying to fight it back, but it's not quite happening, as Molnar is going to be pushing once again against the Red Bull. They're going to be going up into P8. These drivers are getting so close to each other. They're really giving it absolutely everything they've got. And at the front, Lillian is going to be taking the inside line up to turn 27 against Simone Violo, as Nyquist is going to be heading into the pits. Is Simone going to counter-attack with the DRS? Lillian's not going to have it. This could be a move, a return send back. They're going to do a little bit ERS just to confirm it, but they're going to be on the inside, and that is going to be Simone Violo up into P2. Ardagune, only driver yet to pit.
The only driver indeed yet to pit, and we can only expect at the end of this lap, Ardagune is going to come in. Did stay out for quite some time, but might make a bit of a risky decision and go for this soft set, although I do think mediums will be a little bit easier to at least make last until the end. It means that we see Andre Molnar definitely has a lot more pace than Dimas, but yeah, Dimas on 7-lap old tires, Andre Molnar only 1-lap old tires. Andre Molnar will still need to close a 3.3 second gap to get to the back of Corné de Backer, but all the drivers up in front of him are within a DRS strain, so with the fresher tires definitely can make something happen there. We do have to see at the end of the race though what is going to happen to that 3-second time penalty, because I can only assume that last warning is going to get removed if that's protested, but is he going to pick up any more warnings and thus keep that 3-second time penalty? If that's the case, they definitely have to make sure that they can get a 3-second lead when they win the race, if they can, but getting that here is very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a tough battle, as we can see from the helicam shot. 2, 3, and 4 are going to be getting very close to each other. A little bit of fighting in the mid-pack as Dimas, Nyquist, and Leo Lund are all going to be fighting. But it's eyes on the front as Sven Schumacher is going to be taking the inside against Lillian. They're going to be making it into P3. Are we going to see any more moves from these top three? They are so close to each other. If anyone locks up, it is game over. But they keep it tidy. They keep it clean. And through turns 1 and 2, these three are going to be fighting with everything they have got through this lap.
Yeah, we saw Sven Schumacher not going for the move. Definitely had the overspeed to make a move into turn 1. but decided that this is not the time yet. We're going to play the long game. So these drivers definitely want to make it last until the end and make sure they have enough ERS and enough tires left to make that move. In the meantime, though, Andre Molnar has decreased that gap by at least a second, as Vincent Nyquist has also gone by both Leo Lund and Alexander Dimas. So the Alpines are on a charge as well. And if we look further down the field, I think those drivers are mainly going to be contesting for a win. Alexander Dimas, well, he's out in no man's land, so unless a miracle happens, they're not going to be really into contention for anything. Ivan Santa Maria, Rios Sprogus can make up some positions still, and Ardagune is extending their stints. They're now approaching turn 27, so let's see if they're going to come in now. But I think it's only fair to say that they are going to switch to the softs. There is no way that you last this long, and even go for another lap, and then not go for the soft tires. I think next lap they'll come in and go for softs.
Yeah, I'd say crucially, look at the time that they've lost over the course of this lap. It is not insignificant. There is a lot of time and a lot of fighting that they are going to have to do when they come back out. We see a very close tussle. It could have been a move for Milan Mayer, but he decides against it, plays it safe. He didn't have the proximity. And even Sven Schumacher, despite having the DRS on Simone Violo and being right on his tail, opted not to go for the move on start-finish. Why do you think that might have been?
Well, I think they're already playing the long game here. You don't want to be in front because you know the drivers behind you will have the DRS, and well, like we mentioned, you want to be in second when you come across the start-finish line going into the final lap. So Sven Schumacher is already practicing that a little bit and making sure they have enough ERS. Up ahead, Simone Violo has 36% ERS, and he has 71, so almost double. Behind him, Lillian, 97%. Milan Myers on 35, and Koneda Bakkers on 29. So those two drivers don't seem to be up in contention, but Andre Molnar is now going with the overtake. He's used all of his ERS to get back to the back of the field, but I think Andre Molnar will want to make sure that they are going to be as close as possible to lead. If not, just completely throw overboard all the other drivers' strategy, just overtake everyone, and be like, okay, let's see who can stay within my DRS.
Is going to be giving it absolutely everything to get contention and get these positions out on their opponents. But this could be very risky as they're going to be toe-to-toe, tire-to-tire with Milan Mayer. But now they have a couple cars behind them, so that means that they can hold them up and they can recharge a bit of ERS. But looking up ahead, you see Simone Violo, Ardagune and Sven Schumacher and, I would say not Ardagune, and Lillian all fighting for the same spots. Lillian goes a little bit deep. Simone Violo is going to be alongside. They're going to be side by side with one another. Lillian is going to be the one who takes one for the team and chooses to back out to save their car. But Simone Violo and Sven Schumacher are really looking like they want to make some upward movement, as is with that AlphaTauri. Ardagune, interestingly, they aren't actually losing that much time compared to the other rest of the field. So we saw it earlier, but it seems to have equaled out roughly. So good on them for keeping it going this long.
In the meantime, Andre Molnar almost did a Schumacher, and with that I don't mean a Sven Schumacher, but a Mick Schumacher, almost crashing out in turn 10 there. Going a little bit wide, but thankfully keeping the car on the track and not in the wall. But because they're making this charge, the drivers up ahead have decided, okay, we need to do a little bit of a different strategy, because otherwise we are not going to get the race win. And definitely looks like Andre Molnar has got the best papers if they want to get the win, because they can now... Oh, this is very close, as they almost make contact coming out of turn 24. And they're now 3 wide, but yeah, Andre Molnar is just going to brake a little bit later. All the drivers are very close.
Been very dicey, and oh, that is a tap. That is contact between Sven Schumacher and Simone Violo. They're gonna have to dip out back into P4. Simone is going to be pushing out once again, try and re-establish that advantage. Andre Molnar is going to have no way to counter it, but they are going to keep it to the inside. Just enough space being left for the Alpine there. They're going to be so close to the wall, but Simone Violo is going to take it, and a little bit of movement back down as well, as Andre Molnar and Lillian are going to be trading.
Yeah, we now have a 5 for first, which is essentially 7 drivers, but what surprises me the most is Ardagune. He is still on those 18-lap old cars, but if you look at the time differences, they're not losing a lot of time to Sven Schumacher. They really aren't. The gap was, I think, 3 laps ago about 9.8, now it's 8.2. You're losing hardly anything, so it shows that the tires the 8-lap-old mediums are not that much better than the 18-lap-old hards. But one must wonder, when he makes the pits, he is going to come out in P13, and he'll have to make a massive charge down the field. And I don't think they can get further than P8. They have to come in at the end of this lap. And yeah, the battle up front is only going to intensify more and more, as it looks like Corneda Backer has made a slight mistake. So they are going to be dipping out of that fight up in front. Still, Andre Molnar and maybe Vincent Nyquist as well being in the best position to go for a fight for the lead. But what I want to see now, and I hope you can get a proper onboard in that, look at the tire marks in turn 1. It's absolutely crazy. It's like a bulldozer. Look at that.
You see, look at the tires, and so coming through into turn 1 here, you see everything, all those tire marks. It goes completely black at that apex where everyone is just so aggressive, giving it everything. Speaking of, you've got Lillian, who has really remained committed against Simone Violo as we come through turns 1 and 2. They wanted that P3 spot, and they gave everything to have it. Molnar is going to keep the fight clean and going to keep it honest as they are down in P5 and still trying to chase down Simone Violo in that P4 spot. But they are really running on the ragged edge in terms of resources. That recharge light has not stopped flashing.
Yeah, and Molnar has to make sure that he doesn't use too much ERS if he wants to at least have enough ERS left to try and go for the win at the end of the race. So perhaps it's taking them a little bit too much effort to try and go and overtake everyone. In the meantime, what's also interesting to note, people in chat were wondering, hey, does Ardagune need to make a stop, or have they made a stop already? They have not made a stop yet, so unfortunately they can't stay out. They will have to make a pit, and I honestly wonder what's keeping him so long. He has to come in now.
Yeah, I think at this point, he knows that he is committed to the majority, as Ben Marples is going to get a time penalty, interestingly enough. And you see a little bit of fighting happening further below with Sven Schumacher and Simone Violo. They're going to be side by side again. But yeah, I think Ardagune knows that he's committed, unless he made a stop for the softs in the lap 1. We can maybe check that very quickly.
No, he hasn't made a stop.
He has not made a stop. So I think at this point, he's committed. And Lillian is going to come across and is going to make it 3 wide. But yeah, Ardagune, he needs to come in very soon. But he's trying to maximize as much as he can while he's on prime hard. And then go to prime soft as much as he can.
We see a lot of drivers tussling between the positions of 2 and 7. Andre Molnar had to concede a few positions. A little bit of wheel banging going on there, but now he will want to go for the move on Simone Violo. We see one of the Red Bulls driving a little bit slower. That is Ben Marples. Look like they have made some contact. There's a yellow in sector 2 and they're driving a bit slower. It doesn't look like any safety car or anything of that sort. If a safety car would happen now, that would be ideal for Ardagune. But one does wonder, are you waiting for a safety car here? Just waiting too long with pits because you have not made a stop yet. You have to make a pit stop, otherwise you do get disqualified in the F1 game. In the meantime, Lillian, Vincent Nyquist and Sven Schumacher are very close. But yeah, Vincent Nyquist is done the managing a little bit better. Is in the freshest set of compound, and he has about 30% of ERS left. Lillian, 87. Sven Schumacher, 66. Simone Violo is on 20, and Andre Molnar on 11, with Milan Meyer still in the mix with 59%, and we now see Ben Marples retire from the session.
There you go, there's another driver down. Yeah, Lillian made the move through turn 27, but that left them wide open as Sven Schumacher just came and took it right back, with Vincent Nyquist also going for a move into turn 1, but Lillian kept it committed. A little bit of a wiggle coming out of the second corner. It did mean they lost a little bit of traction, and Sven Schumacher, curiously enough, they got a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flag, so that is an anomaly, and I'm not sure. I believe stewards are going to review that, and they're going to remove that, because that was unprompted. There was a yellow flag because a driver had retired in the pits, and that seemingly has gone into the race result. Ooh, big snap from coming from Andre Molnar there.
Yeah, it looks like Andre Molnar has overdone it a little bit. He's dropping back a little bit further. So I think we'll have to mainly look at the fight between Vincent Nyquist, Lillian, and Sven Schumacher. Like you said, I didn't even know you could get a penalty for that. I've never seen it before. One can only assume that it's going to be removed, as we see one of the Ferraris driving slowly. That's Ardagune. Aragune has hit the wall. Aragune has hit the wall and they are now dropping back. They've waited too long to go with the pits and have now made a mistake. And now Lillian and Vincent Nyquist are going for the move on Sven Schumacher. The action is now heating up. We're entering the final 3 laps of this race. And this is where everything's going to... We have a safety car. We have a full safety car. Some of the drivers are too late. It's not Sven Schumacher. He's the first to pit. This is ideal.
We had a 3-way collision between Corne de Baccarat, Sprogis, and even Santa Maria. Unfortunately, we didn't get a perspective on that in time, but yeah, you can see the tyre marks and the strewn carbon across the ground. That is a full SC, as now we are in the final laps of the race. The thing is, because we're on lap 23, the safety car is going to be behaving very strangely. You saw it just teleport behind Lillian and Vincent Nyquist there. But the safety car's only going to be out for a single lap. They have to come in at the end of lap 23, regardless of what happens.
I do wonder how exactly that's going to happen because they're in front of the safety car. So perhaps not stopping has made sure that they're going to... I'm not sure. The safety car stopped on track. What is going to happen? So they can overtake the safety car. No! Wait, what?
What is going on here? I don't understand what's going on. The safety car is behaving so strangely, so peculiarly, as we're getting drivers who, even though the safety car was pulled off to the side, they're going to be getting disqualifications. So Milan Meyer got a disqualification, for instance. They're all the way down at the bottom. I'm just going to check the PC chat and see what is going on, because I don't know. I cannot understand what the safety car logic is right now. Lillian and Nyquist are going to be up on lap 24, and the safety car has made this into a 2-horse race completely.
Well, this is going to be interesting, and this is going to be something the stewards are going to be having their hands full of. So safety car does come in this lap, so that does work. But yeah, Andrew Molnar will now be 40 seconds behind Vincent Nyquist, so that won't matter. So the fight will be between Lillian and Vincent Nyquist because of this bug. But Milan Meyer is one of our championship competitors, and they're not going to get any points now. And they were ahead of this pack, remember? They would have likely gotten P3 or so something here. So, I mean, for us, we can focus on the battle for top 2 and whatever is going to happen for P3, but this is crazy.
I have no idea what happened there. In terms of game logic, that was a mess. And I'm sure that drivers are going to be very frustrated with that one. But we've got a tale of 2 races now. We have a fight between P1 and P2, and then we also have a fight for the rest of the field. So we're going to keep an eye eagerly to the top end of things and see what comes out of it. We have the fight for 3rd spots, which you'll also jump in on. But right now, everything is riding on Vincent Nyquist and Lillian's battle here at the top.
Yeah, we see Vincent Nyquist lining up, Lillian going a little bit wide in turn 27, so Vincent Nyquist can go for the move here, and he knows that he has to make it stick now. Lillian defending the inside, so have to come around the outside. He does not have enough ERS to go for the outside. Lillian does go a little bit wide, so maybe now through the inside, no, also oversteers a little bit. So we'll have to try later on in one of the other 3 DRS zones to try and go for a race win here, but the safety car has definitely done a few things. Lillian and Vincent Nyquist are the big benefactors of that. Alexander Dimas also been able to make up a couple positions there. They're now going to go towards the main straight, so perhaps Dimas can score some good points for the championship because of that late safety car. Ardagune, well, stayed out very long. Might still help out for them a little bit. Andre Molnar potentially losing a race win, although they weren't too close. And yeah, Dimas is very, very quick here, but also very far behind. 3 men wide into turn 1 there. But a fight for P3, and Alexander Dimas taps Leo Lund. That is going to be a penalty, most likely, only one can imagine. And now down the inside comes the Williams of Kokeni Thomas. So Alexander Dimas doesn't make up any positions with that. I think it's going to drop down the order after we see some more Stewart results, as we now have to go for the main fight.
And the top of the end of the field to come through the last corner is going to be Vincent Nyquist. He's going to go around the outside. He's giving it absolutely everything. Squeezed right to the edge. Nyquist is giving it absolutely everything he's got. It's going to be a photo finish to the line. It's 32 milliseconds, but that is Lilian taking the checkered flag at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. They gave it absolutely everything, but that is going to be Nyquist only in P2, but by a hair. So they really did a good job. They really benefited from this. And now, as we see the rest of the drivers coming through, let's see who's going to take that coveted P3 spot.
A couple of drivers still up in contention for that. Andrew Molnar has a little bit of a gap there, but Sven Schumacher right up with Simone Violo's tail and will want to go around the outside here, trying to do the same thing that Vincent Nyquist tried to do, but was not successful. And don't hit the wall, they do hit the wall. And we see more crashing in the back. That is one of the Williamses. Alexander Dimas, I think, can go through, but it's Simone Violo coming down in P3. Wait, where is the other Alpine? Andrew Molnar ended up in 8th. He was 3rd before the last corner. What happened?
I think he got caught up in a lot of the chaos that happened out turn 27. So Simone basically squeezed, I believe, whoever was in 4th. But I think we might even have discussions of the results being taken before the safety car was called, just because of the logic of the game completely balking. So I think what happened is that we saw Simone squeeze whoever was in P4. I believe that would have been Andre Molnar in this case, otherwise he wouldn't have been down in P8. And then the rest of them, of course, got caught up. We could see for ourselves what happened there. So let's see what comes of it. But now your provisional standings are Lilian is going to be taking the win of today's race. Vincent Nyquist is going to be in P2 with a 32 millisecond gap and taking it right to the line with the AlphaTauri. Great job from them. Simone Violo is going to be taking a P3, but I think that squeeze on turn 27 is going to get investigated by stewards. Sven Schumacher takes P4, Ardagune in P5 with a great recovery from the situation they had on the hards and hitting the wall on that large stint. Andrew Karapi in P6, Cordon Gigolo in P7, although they will be taking an extra 5 seconds due to a penalty being carried over from their previous race. So as it stands, they'll be jumping down into P9, and replacing them will be Andre Molnar with Leo Lund ascending into P8. Kenny Tamas in P10, Alexander Dimas in P11, and then Silly Sly Guy, Corneda Backer, Ryan Sprogis, Even Santamaria, Ben Marples, Noel Coleman, Jeremy, Nicola Leder, and Milan Meyer in the final steps, as a lot of drivers DNF'd, and Milan Meyer got a disqualification, although I believe that will be overturned, given they were disqualified due to a bug with the safety car. But that is where we stand, folks, and this is where we see ourselves in this whole situation. What? Like, I can't even say anything else other than what, because everything happened this race. We saw incidents in quali, incidents in the first lap within a few corners even. We saw a lot of drivers really pushing it. We had a couple safety cars of VSC, and then of course we had the logic of the safety car completely breaking, like having a moment, and ending up falsely disqualifying, I believe, Milan Meyer, and really sort of compromising the race of anyone below P2. What would you make of that race, mate? Because I, of course, have my thoughts. I'm going to keep some of them to myself until the stewards have their say, make their piece, and a official announcement is made regarding the results adjudication. But we shall see. But what do you make of this one, mate?
Well, I thought last race was crazy, but this is even crazier because of what happened with the safety car. We already saw, I think it was Lillian asking in the chat if we're going to take the results from before the safety car came out. I think that is definitely something that the stewards should take into consideration, given the penalty that Milan Meyer got, and of course the huge advantage that Lillian and Vincent Nyquist had because of that safety car situation. That also undoes some of the last corner chaos that we saw all the way at the end. But if the results are to stay, remember, Lillian got crashed out in qualifying, started P19, and ended up with a provisional win. That is pretty insane.
That is... yeah, that I don't really know how to make of that, because they effectively did a last to first. So, crazy stuff. Crazier happenings, and Lillian really stood to benefit from that in a major way. Of course, we will see what comes out of it. I know that stewards are going to be having their hands full, that is for sure. But as it stands, a great performance on track. I don't believe we're going to be seeing anyone in the interview box, so we're going to keep the momentum going, and we're going to head straight through. Next race, folks, sees us heading over to Mexico. Circuit Hermanos Rodriguez, what do you make of that track?
Well, yet another track where DRS check-in is such a huge deal. But I think we should see quite a little bit less incidents there. I think in qualifying, a lot more track limits as well, so drivers in Valley and lap times really have to make sure that they have their benchmark there. What I think we will see, though, because of all the chaos ensuing in this race, is that I think we're going to have a new championship leader when we're going to head into the race in Mexico. Because for now, that was Rhodes Brogus. They're not going to be picking up any points. Ivan Santa Maria, I think, picked up some points. Milan Meyer, perhaps a few. Lillian, depends on how much of a result that they got. Sven Schumacher, same thing. Lou Lund, same thing. No, Lou Lund actually can't go all the way front, but they can at least make up some positions. But I think we're going to see a new championship leader going into the race in Mexico. But I'm so looking forward to qualifying, because qualifying is always great there.
Yeah, qualifying never disappoints, and qualifying is one that I always look forward to when it comes to this track. But you're going to have to stay tuned for that one, and you are going to have to hang on tight, as the championship is going to change up in a big way after this race. I can confirm you that much. Mid-pack, top end, even the bottom end, with some drivers really punching above their weight in terms of the standings. We're going to see a lot of changes, we're going to see a lot of volatility, and with 3 rounds to go, that's just the kind of spice that we want to see in Season 34, PSGL PCF4. But that is it for tonight, folks. Make sure to check out our sponsors. Use code PSGL at checkout with GT Omega to get a healthy discount of any products. We will see you next time, folks. Take care, and it'll be same time next week for the Mexican Grand Prix.